Hello students. As we have completed our first two modules, so today we will be starting with module 3. So our today's topic in module 3, module 3 is subdivided into signal generators and comparators. Okay. So comparator is second part, the first part is signal generators. So signal generators will start today. So under signal generators, as per your syllabus, our first topic is triangular bar rectangular wave generator. So we have a circuit here. We will understand how this particular circuit is capable of generating triangular as well as rectangular wave. Means this particular circuit, what you see in front of your screen, is capable of producing this triangular waveform and simultaneously a rectangular waveform like this. Okay. We'll see how it happens. So if you see this circuit diagram, here you can see the first, it has got two op amps connected, right? It has got two op amps, first one and second one. The first op amp is working as a integrator circuit. The first op amp is working as an integrator circuit along with capacitor C1 and resistor R1. Resistor R1, capacitor C1 along with this first one op amp is giving an output of integrator output, which is nothing but a triangular waveform. A triangular wave is getting generated out of this integrator. Same output of integrator is given as input for your Schmitt trigger output. Okay, this is the Schmitt trigger circuit wherein the op amp is working along with resistor R2 and resistor R3. Resistor R2 and R3 along with op amp makes it to work as a Schmitt trigger, and the output of this Schmitt trigger is rectangular waveform. Rectangular waveform is coming out of this Schmitt trigger. Same output of Schmitt trigger, the output of Schmitt trigger is given as input for your integrator. Try to understand. The output of Schmitt trigger is given as input to integrator, and the output of integrator is given as input to Schmitt trigger. Both of them are connected back to back like a loop. It's like this. Okay. Now all of you concentrate here. It's a very important topic from your exam point of view. Okay. So this circuit diagram and this waveform is very important. Okay. So the integrator will produce this triangular waveform. Okay. Triangular waveform, and the Schmitt trigger will produce this rectangular waveform. Now some of the important things here. There is something called as UTP, LTP. So here the waveform has got a lot of importance. So you will be having some new terms here. So this is your integrator output, that is triangular waveform, and this is your Schmitt trigger output, which is rectangular waveform. The new terms here you can see UTP, LTP. UTP means upper threshold potential, LTP means lower threshold potential. Then some more things, V0 SAT means V0 SAT. We call it as output saturation voltage. Output saturation voltage, and this is minus V0 SAT, which is nothing but negative saturation voltage. Negative saturation voltage. So this the concept regarding V0 SAT is already explained to you in my module 1, where V0 SAT or the saturated output voltage means it is the maximum output which any op amp can give. It is the maximum voltage which any op amp can give, and this V0 SAT will be always we can say 1 volt less than supply voltage. 1 volt less than supply voltage. 1 volt less than supply voltage. What is 1 volt? Which is supply voltage here? The VCC what we apply. The VCC and minus VE. We apply 9 volt, 12 volt, 15 volt, right? Isn't it? So whatever the supply voltage is, if the supply voltage is 12 volt, then V naught sat will be 11 minus 1 volt, that is nothing but 12 minus 1, that is 11 volts. V naught sat is going to be 11 volt. If your VCC, if VCC is equal to 15 volt, then V naught sat is going to be 15 minus 1, that is 14 volts. So this is approximation, it may be 14.23 also, but we consider it to be at least 1 volt less than the supply voltage, whatever may be the supply voltage. Okay. Yes, let us understand how the circuit works to produce this output. Okay. Let us analyze this circuit. So for analysis I have given time here T1, T2, T3, T4. Okay. At the time, yes, we'll start with time T1. All of you see here, at the instant of this time T1, you can see here, at this point, at T1, the integrator output, which is our integrator, the upper op amp, the integrator output is at UTP. Why UTP? The upper line is UTP, the lower line is LTP, right? So that is why I am mentioning that at this point we are at UTP. The output of the integrator is at UTP. And Schmitt trigger output, the Schmitt trigger output, where it is at this instant, the Schmitt trigger output is at, come down straight, come down, see where you are at plus V naught sat, you are at plus V naught sat here. This is plus V naught sat and here it is minus V naught sat. This is plus V naught sat and this is minus V naught sat. You are at this point. At T1, the output of integrator is at UTP and the output of Schmitt trigger is at plus V naught sat, very important point. Is this clear? Now this, what happens because of this is, current I1, okay, I have not mentioned current in circuit, so let me call this as current I1. Current I1 flows in resistor R1, current flows through resistor R1 and it goes like this. It goes like this through capacitor C1. So when current flows like this, it charges your capacitor with polarity plus here and minus here. Plus here on the left side, minus on the right side. So this is as shown here. Okay. Now while capacitor is charging, it will produce a negative going ramp from T1 to T2. See here, you are here, right? When current starts flowing through resistor R1 then capacitor C1, it is charging your capacitor, right? Charging your capacitor should be a positive ramp, right? But I am showing this as negative ramp. From T1 to T2 capacitor is charging. Capacitor is charging from T1 to T2. It is going down. So I am calling it as negative ramp. But you may be thinking, why not positive? Why not positive? Because your integrator input is given to inverting terminal, isn't it? Inverting terminal. So your positive will become inverted and negative. So positive ramp, in place of positive you will get negative going ramp when your capacitor is charging. So since your capacitor is charging from T1 to T2, you are getting a negative ramp like this, a negative going ramp. During this, what happens to your Schmitt trigger output? During this period, what happens to your Schmitt trigger output? Schmitt trigger will remain at positive V naught sat. Schmitt trigger will remain at positive V naught sat. That is, it remains at positive saturation level. See, till it completes T2, it is still at plus V naught sat. Is this part clear? Okay. Now at the time of At the time t2, at this instant you can see the output of integrator has reached where? What is this point? This is our LTP. This is our LTP. T2 is at LTP for integrator, right? Integrator. Now, the moment your integrator output reaches LTP voltage, the moment integrator output reaches LTP voltage, immediately the output of Schmitt trigger switches from plus V naught sat and it goes to minus V naught sat. It goes to minus V naught sat. It was here before the integrator output could reach LTP. The moment integrator output reaches LTP, the output of Schmitt trigger changes from plus V naught sat to minus V naught sat. From here, from this point, it drops straight to minus V naught sat and it comes to this point. And this minus V naught sat is the output of Schmitt trigger. It remains here. The Schmitt trigger output will remain at minus V naught sat until the integrator output reaches UTP. I will repeat. The Schmitt trigger output will remain at minus V naught sat here until the output of integrator reaches UTP. When the output of integrator reaches UTP, it is at T3. At T3, the output of Schmitt trigger reaches from minus saturation level to plus saturation level, and the moment this happens, once again capacitor charges. This is negative ramp. Again it discharges. So this triangular waveform you are getting because capacitor is charging, discharging, charging, discharging. Okay, and correspondingly the charging and discharging is changing its UTP and LTP. So whenever the output of integrator changes from UTP to LTP and LTP to UTP, the output of your Schmitt trigger is changing from plus V naught sat to minus, minus to plus, plus to minus. So this is how you are getting triangular and rectangular wave generation. Hope it's clear. And one important thing here is this circuit, we call this circuit as a free running circuit, free running signal generator, as no input is required. No input is required, right? Because the output of one is being used as the input for the other one, and the output of this is being used as the input for the other one. Like a closed loop. No other input is required. Okay. So this circuit is working continuously producing square wave and rectangular wave without taking any input. Okay. The only input will be working as a supply voltage for the op amps. And this circuit is in its very basic form. Okay. This is the base. We also call this circuit as a basic triangular and rectangular wave generator, wherein you don't have any control over the frequency and duty cycle. Frequency means number of cycles produced. Okay. The number of cycles produced, that is the output wave, we don't have any control over the output wave. Whereas by modifying this present circuit, we can have a control over the frequency as well as duty cycle. So we call, after modifying this particular circuit, we call it as frequency and duty cycle adjustments modified circuit. Okay, let me draw it. This is how I am drawing. This is your ground. This will remain as it is, plus VCC minus VE plus VCC minus VE. And this was our grounded. What else is remaining? Yes, this part. Okay. This is the modification. This is your producing triangular wave. Okay. And here it is producing square wave. Rectangular wave. Fine. This is your Schmitt trigger. This is your. In your exam, he will ask you a rectangular bar triangular wave generator with frequency and duty cycle adjustments. So in that case, you have to draw this circuit only. Don't draw the basic one. Okay. So in case he has not asked you this, this basic one, only in that case you can draw the basic one. So it's better if you draw this only in any case. because you won't be losing anything. Okay, this is with control and that is without control. So with control is better to draw. Okay, now if you just compare the previous circuit, it was only capacitance C1 here and it was only resistor R1, right? In place of R1, you can see, in place of R1, R1 is split into R6 and R7. It means two parallel branches are kept here, two parallel branches. Okay, so D1 R6, D2 R7 and R5. This extra is for in this branch, and a resistor R4, a variable resistor R4 is added here. A resistor R4 is added here. I will tell you the purpose. The resistor R4 is meant for frequency control. The job of this R4 is for frequency control. This is for frequency control. And a variable resistor R5, it is for duty cycle control. Now we will see how is this controlling frequency and how is this portion of the circuit is controlling the duty cycle. Okay. Just see now here, I have finished my drawings. I had paused video. Yeah. Now see here, I have drawn two set of waveforms. Can you see both of this? Yeah. Here, the time between T1 and T2, just observe there. Between T1 and T2, the capacitor is charging with a negative ramp. With a negative ramp, the capacitor is charging between T1 and T2. So whenever capacitor is charging, your Schmitt trigger output will remain positive. And whenever capacitor is discharging in positive direction, the output of Schmitt trigger is going to be at minus V naught side. Remember these 2 points. Now see here, the duration of your pulse width means the duration of your Schmitt trigger which remains on positive voltage. The duration for your Schmitt trigger which remains at positive saturation level is called as pulse width, means on position. This is off position, on, off. Okay, so see the pulse width here, it is here it is narrow, whereas here the pulse width is wide. Here it is narrow because the duration between T1 and T2 is very short. Why it is short? The charging is happening very fast. So as the charging of capacitor is very fast, so it happens in a small time, that is T1 and T2, and the pulse width becomes short. Whereas the discharging of the capacitor is slow. Because of that, what happens? The duration between T1 and T3 is more. The time taken is more to discharge. So when you compare to the other set of waveform here, the T1 and T2, the time duration is long, the charging takes more time, so pulse width will increase. Okay, and the the discharging time T1 to T3, T2 to T3 is very short. The time duration is short here. So this will vary your pulse width. Now what is this pulse width? Why I have come to this topic is because we know that duty cycle is given by T on divided by total time T into 100%. This is how the duty cycle is given. Now, the first set of waveform is for small duty cycle. This is for small duty cycle. Small duty cycle because T on time is short. here. So this will produce small duty cycle. This is for large duty cycle. This is for large duty cycle because this here the T on time period is large. T on time period is large. Okay. Now let us analyze this with resistor R4 first, then we'll go for the upper part. Let us see what happens with R4. What is the requirement? Why do we have a variable resistor R4 here, and how it can vary our frequency? Now see here. This resistor, for this resistor, it is controlling our current I1 and I2. Just see, the resistor R4 has to carry current I1 and I2. And what is this I1 and I2? I1 and I2 are the currents which are flowing through capacitor C1. Just see, if it is I1, it has to flow like this, right? Isn't it? Because it cannot flow into your op amp. Op amp will not take anything inside as a current, right? Because of its high input impedance. So this I1 has to flow like this, and I2 has to flow like this. I2 through capacitor, resistor R7, D2, it has to flow like this. So both I1 and I2 has to flow R4. Okay. Now see here how the resistance of R4 is going to control your current. Okay. Now I say that we increase value of R4. To increase value of R4, what we do is we connect this R4 here. If we connect R4 to this, means the whole resistance is included in the circuit. The whole resistance of R4 comes and gets added into series of your circuit. So R4 is more. R4 is full now. So I can say by increasing resistor R4, what happens to your current I1? Current I1 decreases. So decreases. So this will reduce the capacitor charging current. So the capacitor charging current is I1. So I1 is decreased because increase in R4. Because we have connected the full resistor R4. So this will reduce our current I1, where I1 is the charging current. If charging current, so charging current is decrease. Charging current is decrease. So what happens here? Just concentrate. So as R4 is full, as the resistor R4 is full, the current I1 decreases. Current I1 decreases. If current to the capacitor C1 decreases, capacitor C1 charges slowly, isn't it? The capacitor C1 charges slowly because current has been decreased. Current I1 is decreased because increase in R4. Because increase in R4, current I1 is decreased, due to which the charging of capacitor has become slow. And this will increase the time interval. This will increase the time interval of charging. See, between T1 and T2, the charging, this is charging time. T1 to T2, the charging time is increased because capacitor is taking more time to charge. Capacitor is taking more time to charge here. Why it is taking more time? Because current is less. Why the current is less? Because resistance R4 is full. Understood? Hence the output frequency is reduced. Output frequency, what happens? What happens to the frequency? If time period is increased, frequency has to decrease, isn't it? If time period increases, we know that frequency is equal to 1 over t, right? 1 over t. So if time increases, frequency has to decrease. Understood? So with increase in R4 value, frequency will decrease. With increase in R4 value, I write here, with increase in R4 value, frequency will decrease. Okay. Let us analyze in opposite way. If resistor R4 is decreased, means what I have to do? I have to jump this and connect here. So that resistance, the effect of resistance is excluded from the circuit. So the whole current will flow like this. It jumps. Okay. It doesn't flow through R4. So now see here, with decrease in see, I am taking opposite now. With decrease in R4, with decrease in R4, what happens to current? Current will increase. Yes, very good. With decrease in resistance, the current has to increase. When current increases, this current has to go and charge your capacitor, right? So as the current has increased, current increases, right? So the charging becomes very fast. Charging becomes very fast. So this set of waveform you need to refer. So as resistance decreased, current has been increased. So this will charge your capacitor very quickly in very short time. With see how the time is short here. The time is short between T1 and T2, isn't it? So the charging of capacitor is very quick. So this will give you a pulse width of narrow width. A T on is of narrow width. Okay, T on is of narrow width. So it means that with decrease in resistance, current will increase. So the charging time decreases and frequency increases. Understood? With decrease in resistance, current will increase. Time for charging capacitor will reduce because it charges very fast. Time reduces. So this will increase your frequency. Understood? This is what the frequency control is with the resistor R4. If you increase resistor R4, frequency will decrease. If you decrease resistance R4, your frequency will increase. So this is what the frequency control is. This is frequency control. Now let us understand what is duty cycle control and what is the role of this particular part of your circuit. Okay. Now here I want you to notice that if resistor R4 can have an impact on the current I1 and I2, right, where I1 and I2 has the current which is charging and discharging your capacitor, right. So if R1 is having an impact on current I1 and I2, then you have resistors R5, R6, R7 also going to have an impact on your capacitor charging and discharging current. That is, I1 and I2 will be affected by the resistance R5, R6, R7. Okay. Yes. Now see here, when this is your Schmitt trigger, okay, this is your Schmitt trigger output, right? Now see here, when your Schmitt trigger output is at positive saturation level here, when your rectangular output, or I can say Schmitt trigger output, is at positive, when it is positive, the current I1 flows upside, right? The current I1, okay, I have to use this circuit. When your Schmitt trigger is at positive, when Schmitt trigger is at positive voltage, so this positive voltage will drive a current I1. How the current I1 flows? Current I1 flows through resistor R5, diode D1, R6, isn't it? So I can say this is the path for I1. This is the path for I1, like this, right? So this will charge your capacitor C1. And opposite of that, when the output of Schmitt trigger is at negative minus V0 side, so this will cause a current I2 to flow like this. This is your I2. It flows like this. Okay, I should show it here. This is your I2. So current I2 flows, how does it flow? C1, R7, D2, R5. Okay, C1, R7, D2 and R5, isn't it? Okay, so you understood how I1 and I2 is flowing, right? Now consider that this variable resistor R5, what you are seeing here, if I keep this moving contact at top, if I connect this here, if I connect it on R5 like this, visible? Like this. If resistor if it is connected above the resistor R5 means I have bypassed the resistance when current I1 is flowing. When the moving contact is exactly when the 1 second, yes, one point I missed here. If your moving contact kept here at the center, if your moving contact is kept at the center, if your moving contact is kept at the center of R5, then I say that I1 current is equal to I2, right? Current I1 is equal to I2 if the variable resistance of R5 is kept at the middle, right? Now let me alter this such a way that it is kept at the top of R5. It is kept at the top of R5. Now what happens? Which current is more? I1 is more or I2 is more? If it is kept above R5, means here which current is flowing? Here I1 is flowing and here I2 is flowing, isn't it? So if I keep this variable resistance upside at this point, the resistance in the path of current I1 will reduces, correct? The resistance of current I1, which is the path? I1 has to flow through R5, R6, isn't it? R5 is excluded. R5 is excluded now because it has to flow only through resistance R6. So what happens to resistance, what happens to current I1? In this case, when I keep it up, the current I1 will increase. Current I1 will increase. So if current I1 increases, charging of capacitor becomes fast. Charging of capacitors becomes fast because current has been increased. If charging becomes fast, you are here. If charging is fast means T1 to T2 is very quick and the pulse width you will get a very narrow pulse width. So you have a control over on time. You can control the on time here. Okay. Now similarly, at the same time, what is current I2? Since this is kept at up, current I2 has more resistance, right? For the path of current I2, it has to flow through R7 and R5, right? So more the resistance, lower the current. So I2 will be less. So in this case, I1 is more than I2. When resistor R5 is connected in this particular position. Okay. So in this case, I1 is greater than I2. So this will give you T on small duration. Okay. The opposite of this, if I connect this here at the bottom, if R5 variable resistance is connected at the bottom, then what happens? For the current I1, resistance will increase and for the current I2, resistance will decrease. So in this case, I1 will be less than I2. Therefore, T on is large. T on is large time. It is this. T1 and T2 becomes large. So this becomes large. T on time is large. So this is nothing but our duty cycle, which tells that T on divided by total time into 100% will give you duty cycle. So we say that by having a variation, by controlling resistor R5, you can control duty cycle. And by controlling resistor R4, you can control frequency. Frequency means number of cycles can be controlled here. Okay. Yes, let us have the design consideration for this. Okay. Let me start from here. Now, we are using one integrator and one Smith trigger, right? So let us start with Smith trigger. Which Smith trigger is used here? See, the input is given to non-inverting terminal. So we have a non-inverting Smith trigger. We also call it a Smith circuit. Okay. So first design is for that. So how do you calculate R2? R2 is calculated as V0 sat divided by current I3. Okay. This is the formula for this. Now you may be thinking, how do we get this formula? So for this is from your module 3, right? Module 3 first part. Module 3 second part is all about Smith triggers. Okay. There you will understand how Smith triggers work and how you get these equations. Okay. So for time being, just take down these equations. So this is your R2. So R3 will be UTP divided by I3. UTP divided by I3, where I3 is equal to 100 times of IB max, 100 times of IB max. So capacitor, we have capacitor here, right? For integrator, capacitor C1 we can calculate as C1 equal to I1 change in time, change in voltage, where I1 is I1 minimum, okay, which is approximately equal to IB max. You know what is IB max already? 500 nanoamperes. Then change in time, we take it as pulse width maximum at lowest frequency. Then we have a change in voltage is equal taken as UTP minus LTP. So you will be using all this I1 change in time, change in voltage to calculate capacitance C1, and this is how you can calculate R2 and R3. Now what else is remaining? Yes, R4, R5, R6, right? R4, R5, R6. Now, yes, we can write the sum of resistance R4, R5, R6. So why I have taken all three is because if current I1 is flowing, it has to flow through R4, R5, then R6, isn't it? And then current I2 has to flow, it has to flow through R7, R5, R4. Okay. Now here, so I can write for minimum current I1 to flow, for I1 current to minimum, it has to flow through R4, R5, R6. All resistance in series. So I have added R4, R5, R6. So this is equal to output voltage of Smith trigger, minus Vf by I1 minimum, where Vf is forward voltage drop of diode D1. Vf is voltage drop of diode. Okay, voltage drop of diode. Now, the ratio of charging current, I can write the ratio of charging current I'll use this pen. I guess it's not visible. The ratio of charging current at low frequency F1 and high frequency F2 is given as IF1 divided by IF2. IF1, IF2 means, okay, before that, the ratio of charging current at low frequency F1. Low frequency F1 I am telling because whenever the current is less, the frequency is less. Just concentrate my sentence. Whenever the current is less, the frequency is less. Why? Because the current is less, the time period is more. When the time period is more, the frequency is less. So I can say when the current is less, when the current is minimum, frequency is minimum. When the current is minimum, frequency is minimum. Like this. F1 by F2. When the current is minimum, your frequency is minimum. When the and when the frequency is maximum, your current is maximum. So at low frequency, I can write at low frequency F1, what is your IF1? When the frequency is less, your I1 will be minimum. Means when the current is minimum, your frequency is going to be low. So therefore, we can write I1 minimum IF2 equal to F1 by F2. Understood? Now, some more part is required, so I will be using this. I'll write it here because we are still not done with R4, R5, R6, right? Now, to get highest output frequency, that is F2, what should be R4? To get highest frequency, it should give highest current. To get highest current, what should be the value of R4? R4 must be equal to 0, right? R4 must be equal to 0, and this will give you charging current IF2. This will give you charging current IF2. Hence, in place of R4, R5, R6, I have made R4 equal to 0. So this R4 is made 0 here. Understood? To get maximum current. To get maximum current means this is for maximum frequency. So I can write V0 sat minus Vf divided by IF2. This is important. To get IF2, R4 must be 0. Okay? And for I1 minimum, that is for minimum frequency, R4 should be present with full magnitude. Then one last point for pulse width. Yes, I have cleaned this portion. So for maximum pulse width, R5 and R6 is in series. Why is this? R5 and R6 is in series means more the resistance. More the resistance, current will be less. If current is less, charging will be slow. If charging is less, charging is slow, the time duration will be more. The time duration will be large. So pulse width will become wide. Pulse width will become wide. So for maximum pulse width, R5 and R6 should be in series. And for minimum pulse width, tell me, for minimum pulse width, what should be R5? R5 should be 0, isn't it? R5 should be 0. If R5 is 0, resistance will decrease, current will increase, charging will become very fast, time period will decrease, means pulse width will decrease. So we can write R5 plus R6 divided by R6 equal to, this is for pulse width maximum and this is for pulse width minimum. Important formula. So this will end your topic. Yes, it was very lengthy topic, but remember each of this this particular topic is very, very important for your exams. Okay, so let us solve problem in my another video on the same topic. Till then, thank you.